What happens to your dog's brain when you leave the house every day? Most owners assume their dog barks for a few minutes, then curls up on the couch and sleeps until you get back. But what's actually unfolding inside their mind during those hours is something most people have never been told. It changes how their brain develops, how their body responds to stress, and even how they behave when you finally walk back through the door. What starts happening? The moment you leave might completely change the way you think about your daily goodbye. Here's what's really going on. 1. Their brain triggers the same response as a panic attack. The moment your front door closes, your dog's brain doesn't just register that you're gone. It registers that the most important thing in their world has disappeared without explanation. And for a dog, that distinction matters enormously. Dogs are pack animals at their core, not in the oversimplified dominance theory way that got popular decades ago, but in a deeply biological way. Their nervous system was built around the presence of others. Isolation, for a dog, isn't just uncomfortable. It's a signal that something has gone wrong. When you leave, the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that processes fear and threat, lights up immediately. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, begins flooding the bloodstream. Heart rate climbs, breathing becomes shallow. The body enters a state that in humans we would recognize as acute anxiety. A study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science found that cortisol levels in dogs spiked significantly in the first 30 minutes after their owner left, even in dogs that appeared calm on the outside. Appearing calm and being calm are not the same thing. This is the part most owners miss entirely. Because their dog isn't destroying furniture or howling, they assume the dog is fine. But the stress response is happening silently, underneath the surface, every single day. And the daily repetition of that response is what starts to shape everything else. 2. Their sense of time breaks down in a way you'd never expect. Here's a question most owners have asked at some point. Does my dog even know how long I've been gone? Does an hour feel different to them than 8 hours? The answer is yes and no, and the truth is more complicated than either. Dogs don't experience time the way humans do. They don't watch a clock and count down. But they do have a biological system called circadian rhythms that tracks the passage of time through environmental cues, light levels, sounds outside, temperature shifts, hunger signals. Their body is always reading the room, even when their mind isn't consciously processing it. Research from the University of Western Ontario found that dogs showed more enthusiastic greeting behavior after 2 hours of separation compared to 30 minutes, which tells us something important. They do register the difference. Longer absence produces a measurably stronger emotional response. But here's where it gets harder to hear. For a dog with separation anxiety, that emotional clock doesn't wind down after an hour or two. It stays elevated. The stress response that spiked when you left doesn't fully resolve. It sits there simmering at a low level until the moment you return, which means for some dogs, every hour alone isn't neutral waiting time. It's extended stress time. And there's one more layer to this. Dogs are extraordinarily sensitive to your pre-departure routine. The specific sound of your keys, the particular shoes you put on before work, the way you pick up your bag. A study published in PLOS ONE confirmed that dogs begin showing stress signals before their owner even reaches the door, simply in response to these pre-leaving cues. Their brain learned your routine so precisely that the stress begins before the goodbye. 3. Their brain physically changes with repeated daily stress. This is the part that most owners never connect, because the effects are invisible and they build slowly. But the science behind it is difficult to ignore once you understand it. Chronic stress doesn't just affect how your dog feels in the moment. Over time, repeated cortisol spikes actually alter the structure and function of the brain itself. The hippocampus, which is the region responsible for memory and emotional regulation, is particularly vulnerable. In both humans and dogs, prolonged exposure to elevated cortisol has been shown to suppress hippocampal function and in severe cases reduce its volume. What that means in practical terms is that a dog experiencing daily separation stress isn't just unhappy while you're gone. They may become less capable of regulating their own emotions over time, more reactive, more easily startled, slower to calm down after excitement or fear. Research published in the journal Veterinary Record found that dogs with chronic separation-related behavior showed markers consistent with long-term stress exposure, including changes in baseline cortisol levels, even when their owners were present. The stress wasn't confined to the departure window. It had become their default state. And here's what makes this especially important. These behavioral changes are often misread. The dog that snaps more easily, the dog that seems harder to train, the dog that stopped playing the way they used to. Owners often chalk this up to age, stubbornness, or personality. But in many cases, what they're actually seeing is a brain that has been quietly reshaped by years of unaddressed daily stress. This isn't about blame. Most owners have no idea this is happening, but knowing it changes what you can do about it. 4. What your dog does while you're gone reveals exactly how they're coping. Have you ever set up a camera to watch your dog while you're at work? If you haven't, what you'd see might surprise you, and not always in a good way. Dogs generally fall into a few distinct behavioral patterns during alone time, and each one tells a different story about what's happening in their brain. The first pattern is genuine rest. The dog settles within 30 minutes, finds a comfortable spot, and spends most of the day sleeping or resting calmly. Their breathing is slow, their body is loose. This is the dog whose stress response activated and then resolved. Their brain assessed the situation, found no ongoing threat, and downshifted. These dogs tend to have a strong foundation of security. They've been taught through consistent routine and gradual alone time training that departure is temporary and safe. The second pattern is displacement behavior. The dog isn't visibly panicking, but they're not resting either. They pace slowly. They lick their paws repeatedly. They carry a toy around without playing with it. They stare at walls. These are stress coping behaviors. The brain is trying to self-regulate, but struggling. It's the canine equivalent of a person who can't stop checking their phone or tapping their foot. Not a crisis, but not okay either. The third pattern is the one most owners recognize because it comes with consequences. Destructive behavior, excessive vocalization, house accidents despite being fully house-trained. This is the brain in a sustained distress state. The prefrontal cortex, which handles impulse control and decision-making, essentially goes offline under extreme stress. What looks like bad behavior is actually a nervous system that has lost the ability to regulate itself. A study from the University of Bristol found that a significant portion of dogs left alone regularly displayed at least one behavioral indicator of stress, even dogs whose owners had no idea anything was wrong. The camera doesn't lie. The dog's behavior does. 5. The one thing that changes everything, and most owners never try it. So if all of this is happening, what actually helps? This is the part I mentioned at the beginning. The thing that can quietly transform your dog's daily experience while you're gone. And it's not what most people expect. Most owners try to fix departure stress by changing what happens at the door. They give a long emotional goodbye. They say it's okay. It's okay in a soothing voice. They make a big fuss of leaving and returning. And without realizing it, they're making things worse. Here's why. Emotional departures teach your dog that leaving is a significant event. When you make the goodbye dramatic, your dog's brain encodes it as something worth being anxious about. The bigger the departure ritual, the stronger the stress spike on the other side of that door. The research-backed approach is counterintuitive. Make departures boring. Practice leaving for 30 seconds, then 2 minutes, then 10, then an hour, without any emotional escalation at any point. Give your dog something to do before you leave, not as a distraction trick, but as a genuine cognitive engagement. A stuffed food puzzle, a long, lasting chew, something that activates the brain's reward system rather than its alarm system. A study published in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior found that dogs given food-based enrichment before owner departure showed measurably lower cortisol levels and fewer stress behaviors during alone time compared to dogs given no enrichment. The brain can't fully run two systems at once. When the reward system is engaged, the threat system quiets. Beyond that, the single most powerful long-term tool is building what behaviorists call a secure attachment. This doesn't mean spending every second with your dog. It means being consistent. Predictable departures, predictable returns. A routine the dog can map their day around. The same principle that works for cats, for children, for any social animal that depends on reading the behavior of the ones they love.